Hey guys, Miss Morel here. This is my first time I've videotaped myself doing this, and I only have 15 minutes to get it all in. So I'm gonna launch, and this video is because in Monday's class we're gonna cover a lot of vocabulary from 6th grade that I want you to be able to refer back to. So I wanna make sure that you have the information that you need that we're gonna have in the discussion on Monday. So, this is the equation for photosynthesis. Here's the sun producing some radiant energy and little chloroplasts in plants absorbing the radiant energy. So here's what happens. What I need you to remember is that a chemical equation represents a chemical reaction. And in class, we talked about how a chemical reaction is simply when a new substance is produced. So the difference between a physical and a chemical change, a physical change just changes the way something appears. A chemical change changes the composition of the substance and you have a new substance. So this is a chemical change because what you have on the right-hand side is different from what you have on the left-hand side. So let's break this equation down. So first of all, two big vocabulary words. Everything on the left-hand side of an equation is called a reactant. And reactants are the stuff that combine to and rearrange to make the stuff on the right-hand side of the equation. The stuff on the right-hand side of the equation are called products. So in this case, the reactants are 6 carbon dioxide molecules, 6 water molecules, 1 glucose molecule are the products, and 6 oxygen molecules are products. So reactants are on the left, products are on the right. One thing that I always tell my 8th graders when we do chemistry is reactants react to produce products. So reactants react to produce product. So that's what this arrow means. It means produces or yields. So this arrow literally means yields or produces. Okay, so let's break down what we have. First of all, this 6 is what we call a coefficient. And here, let me turn this so you can see that. Okay, so this 6 is what we call a coefficient. And a coefficient simply means that I have 6 of these molecules. So I could write CO2 6 times. But that's a big pain in the butt. I don't want to do that. These 6 molecules are the same thing as this coefficient 6. That's what it means, is that you have 6 molecules of that substance. So if we weren't going to use coefficients, we would have to write out the 6 carbon dioxides, the 6 hydrogens. Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and do it. So we'll have the 6 waters. And then we only have 1 glucose because there's no coefficient on it. So we only have 1. So that one's, we'll go ahead and write it in orange so it matches. Okay, and then we've got a coefficient 6 on the oxygens over here. So it's saying we have to write those 6 times. Okay, so thank goodness we have coefficients, right? Because we would have to write all of this stuff down if we didn't. Okay, so now let's go back and see what the little numbers mean. So the coefficients tell us how many molecules we have. The little numbers, here, let me do these in a different color. How about if I do these in green? Okay, these little numbers here, 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 and here, these little numbers are called subscripts. And I'm going to put this over here. subscripts. And subscript literally means writing down below, subscript. So the number is written down below the line. So a subscript tells you how many atoms you have. So if this subscript is attached to this oxygen, it's telling you there are 2 oxygens there, okay? If this subscript is attached to this hydrogen, it's telling you there are 2 hydrogens there. Okay, so to count the number of atoms that you have to distribute the coefficient 6 in to each of the atoms present, each of the elements that you have in the compounds. Okay, so you can tell how many elements are present by counting the capital letters. So in carbon dioxide, you have 2 capital letters, so you have a carbon and an oxygen. So those are your 2 elements. In water, you have hydrogen and oxygen. In glucose, you can see that you have C6H12O6, so 3 elements in this molecule, and then there's only 1 capital letter in this one, and so that's just 1 element, and that's oxygen. Now, just to refresh your memory, this glucose is what we call a compound, and a compound simply means a substance that has 2 or more different elements, so carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, or hydrogen and oxygen, or carbon dioxide, or carbon and oxygen, 3 or more different elements chemically bonded in fixed ratios. Chemically bonded in fixed ratios. So this one would be considered a compound because it has 3 elements. This one, yes, it's chemically bonded and there are 2 of them, but there's not a second element. So this one's not a compound. This one is a molecule. So all molecules are compounds, but not all compounds. No, is it the other way around? All compounds are molecules, but not all molecules are compounds. There we go. Okay, so let's go back to counting our atoms. Okay, so I have, if I multiply this 6 in, let me have a different color. Let's do this blue. Okay, if I multiply in this 6, so 6 times 1 is 6 carbons. 6 times 2 is 12 oxygens. So 6 carbons plus 12 oxygens is 18 atoms. So this compound has 18 atoms in it, okay? If I multiply this one in, 6 times 2 is 12, and 6 times 1 is 6. So 12 plus 6 is 18. This one also has 18 atoms in it. So that means on the reactant side, I have 18 plus 18 atoms, which is 34 AMU, 34 atomic mass units on the reactant side. Now, let's switch to the product side. So here I have 6 atoms. There's no coefficient, so I don't have to multiply anything in. 6 atoms plus 12 atoms is 18 atoms, plus 6 more atoms is 24 atoms. And then simple multiplication, 6 times 2 is 12. Oops, I did my math wrong over here. Sorry, you guys. 18 plus 18 is 36, not 34. My bad. 36 AMU. So then 24 plus 12 is also 36 AMU. So you can tell we have the same number of atoms. We don't have any new elements. So we have 36 AMU on this side. That means atomic mass units. We have 36 AMU on the product side. That means that we have followed the law of conservation of mass or matter or energy, which says matter can't be created or destroyed. It can only be rearranged. So what photosynthesis does is it uses radiant energy from the sun to break apart the chemical bonds holding these 6 carbon dioxide molecules together and these 6 water molecules together. And then it takes all of those atoms, that's what the arrow does, takes all of those atoms and rearranges them into new substances, glucose and oxygen, and attaches, chemically bonds them together with chemical bonds that have stored energy. So we've gone from radiant energy here to breaking apart these bonds to reforming these atoms, and now this glucose molecule with 24 atoms in it, that's where the stored energy is. That's where the chemical energy is that provides the energy for the mitochondria. So radiant from the sun to chemical energy stored in a single glucose molecule. So this whole process only produces 1 molecule of glucose, which isn't very much. So you've got to have this process going on a lot to produce enough glucose to keep an organism alive. And then, of course, it gives off oxygen, which is awesome for us because we breathe oxygen. So I'm looking at my notes. I think that's everything that I wanted you guys to see. So let me back up. You can kind of see our whole equation there. Hopefully this makes sense to you after class today. You can watch this as a little review. So we've talked about what a chemical equation represents, the difference between a chemical and a physical change. We've talked about the difference between a compound and a molecule. We've counted atoms. We've talked about what coefficients mean and what subscripts mean. So there's a lot of information in this graphic right here. We're going to be talking about this a lot more in class, but I just want you guys to have access to this information permanently, so I hope this helps. Thank you so much for listening.